Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much to Melanoma Focus for the invite to be here today and present on this project. So I'll be talking about sunbed alternatives, but the talk today is mainly about the our research plans. So we're just starting to recruit data, so I don't have any findings to show you yet, but I'll guide you through what our plans are at the moment. Also important to mention that I'm a behavioral scientist with a background in psychology. So that's my standpoint for this research. And also in the sort of journey to melanoma, my research sits in prevention. So for those cases that we know that melanoma is preventable, that's what I'm looking at with this research. So why do people engage with or not engage with sunbed alternatives? My research will look at why do people engage with certain behavior or don't engage in a certain behavior, and how can we motivate people to do so. Okay? I just thought it would be important to give that sort of perspective of what I'm about to talk about. Okay? So in terms of sunbeds, we know that they give a strong UV radiation, which we also know that it's linked with skin cancer. And the radiation, so the UV levels from sunbeds are a lot higher than the ones that you get from natural sunlight. And a recent survey conducted by Melanoma Focus last year found that 30% of the participants reported being sunbed users. So that's quite a big amount of people that are using sunbeds. But when we look more specifically at young people, why do we think this is a particularly important group to target? So the young people are still using sunbeds, even though there's well-known risks associated with it. But we also know that the use of sunbeds before the age of 35, it actually increases the risk of melanoma by 75%. So it's really important to intervene as early as possible. In terms of the alternatives, there are plenty of alternatives out there. And by alternatives, I mean the things like spray tan or using fake tan. But they're not widely used. So we want to really understand why is this, okay? But looking at why people are still using sunbeds, that can give us some sort of tips on how we might target our sort of strategies. So some people report the psychological benefits, so they feel more confident if they have a tan, for instance. But there's also a lot of people that would deny the health risks of using sunbeds, or they simply don't like the alternatives. But we also know that the current research is pointing at that we need to look for better alternatives. We need to change those unrealistic beauty standards. We need to try and boost self-esteem through other means. And we need to reduce this pushback against the risk warnings as well. So this is where our research come in. So we know that people don't like the alternatives, but what we're trying to do with this project is to understand what are their thoughts, what are the exact reasons, so trying to get more, deeper information on this topic, and also the sort of feelings that they might have associated with the alternatives. So the main aim is really to try and understand why or what are the thoughts of young people on sunbed alternatives. And we're going to do this in two stages. So the initial stage, we're going to do a survey where we're going to ask young people the key reasons why they use or don't use sunbed alternatives. And in the second stage, we'll use the information from the survey and we'll try to come up with some messages or strategies. And using this think aloud technique, we'll try and understand, so sort of get this feedback on the alternatives that we might develop based on the survey. The other thing that it's important to mention is within our project, we also have what we call a patient and the public contributor panel. And here we look for 3 or 4 members to really inform the research, so inform what we're trying to do, so our design, but also all the materials that we might develop. And really, what we're looking for is previous or current Sunbed users for the PPI. So for the group that is going to inform the research, they can be previous Sunbed users. That's absolutely fine. Age 18 to 24. And we have already identified a few through the networks that we have access to. And you've managed to get some feedback already on the survey, but we're really hoping to get more feedback as we move through the research. And also when we get to the end and we're starting to look at the data or giving a meaning to the data, we want to involve again members of the public at that stage. So looking through what we're doing, so the first step is an online survey, as I said. We're using a specific online platform that has, for this age bracket, so we're looking at Sunbed users 18 to 24 as about 11,000 participants. So we're confident that we'll manage to get the numbers that we need. But more importantly, we're really looking for a representative sample for this survey. So we'll keep track of numbers as they come in. Ideally, we want a representative sample in terms of age, gender, ethnicity as well, and things like social deprivation. And by this I mean things like social economic status. So our survey will have an initial section on demographics, but also to try and understand how often they use Sunbeds, how often they use Sunbed alternatives, what are the alternatives that they enjoy the most, so trying to get some understanding of the actual behavior, if you want. And then we'll move on with, I won't go into a lot of detail, but we've developed questions that are informed by behavior change theories to try and understand those thoughts and feelings associated with using Sunbed alternatives. And as well, we also have some open-ended questions before we start the survey to get that initial reaction to the topic as well. So we also want to collect some narrative around the behavior, which I think will really help when we come to interpret the findings at the end as well. We'll use those alongside. And there's a small section at the end as well of that survey that looks at public opinion on things, on policy measures. So very much like the VAT associated with sunscreen, we have about 8 questions about things like how would they view a total ban on Sunbed users? How would they view, for instance, taxation on outlets? How would they view licensing? So licensing is only available in Northern Ireland. So we're really trying to get a little bit of data in terms of that sort of public opinion or how certain measures would be viewed if they were implemented. So really trying to also move on a little bit from the individual and trying to understand how we can, as a society, also support this, this sort of prevention agenda. So those are some examples of the questions that we might ask in the survey. I believe that using Sunbed alternatives make me look more attractive. So this is an example of a belief about a consequence, what might happen if I use an alternative. Using Sunbed alternatives makes me feel good, so this is tapping into the emotional side of the behavior. Sunbed alternatives are affordable, so we also want to try and understand sort of time and cost constraints associated with the behavior. I use Sunbed alternatives because I like to have tan skin all year round. And using sunbed alternatives helps maintain my identity. So having a tan is part of how I view myself. So trying to also get a sense of their self-image. The second, so following the survey and using the findings from the survey, we're hoping to then develop messages or strategies that will use the think aloud technique. So we'll show the messages and ask people to give us their thoughts, their feelings as they're viewing the messages. And we hope to collect feedback in terms of things like future use, whether they see any challenges of using such messages, how easy they are to understand, how useful they find the advice, and also best delivery methods. So for instance, would they like to see the message displayed on social media? Would they rather have advice given by someone, for instance, a healthcare professional? So we also try and understand that sort of aspect and get their feedback that hopefully we can take the next step from this study and sort of test those messages with a larger group of people. So for this part of the study, we're only looking to explore initial feedback on those very early messages. So we're only looking for 30 people to help us providing feedback on this. So a little bit of a research update. Where are we at the moment? We got ethical approval, and we also pre-registered the study in an open science framework. So mainly this means that the study is available to anyone to access and read through what our plans are. It also ensures transparency in the research process. We've completed the questionnaire development, so we had several rounds of feedback. We started with the public contributors and done a little bit of an elicitation study trying to understand how they view sunbeds, what terminology they use for the alternatives as well. And from that, we developed some items. We went back to them to kind of get a sense whether we were heading in the right direction. And we also had involvement from other experts like consultant dermatologists and also other members of the team to really get the survey ready to go. And we just started recruitment as well. So as of last week, we're currently looking for participants through the platform that I mentioned earlier to complete the survey. But we are still looking for more members of the public to help out with our research. So if you know someone that sort of fits the criteria, so current or previous sunbed user, 18 to 24 years old, lives in the UK, then please feel free to share my contact details, but also Lauren's contact details, and they're more than welcome to just drop us a line and we'll take it from there, explaining what it entails. But yeah, please feel free to share that. And just before I finish, I just really want to say a big thank you to a few people that have made this project possible. First of all, to Melanoma Focus for the funding, otherwise we wouldn't have a project really that we could present today. The public contributors that have helped so far with our research, it's been incredibly important to work with them or work alongside on this topic. The research team, which have been very, very supportive, and HealthWorks, which is a Northeast-based charity that is also acting as an advisor on this project. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you.